welcome.
All right. That was an awesome introduction, Enzo. Thank you. With the hat is Enzo Silva on screen. I am Craig Wiggins with the badly lit back or foreground. I don't know. I need to work that out. And we have special guest Anthony Altieri. Hey, Anthony, how's it going?
It is going.
Well, good. Good. When it stops, let us know.
This is going somewhere.
Yeah, right. So we're without our usual partner in crime, Brent Schlenker. I think he's missing in action today. Not sure what's going on. He's had some I guess technical difficulties of late, so he may be fixing his makeup or his lighting. So I'm not sure what he's up to at the moment.
Or his backdrop.
Or his backdrop, yeah. No, you know what it is? I'm actually jealous of you guys. You guys have all this equipment. So the other day, I realized that I'm here at ADL. We do have video, equipment around here. So I don't have it set up, but to my left, I've got an entire.
Clearly, he does.
Yeah, right. The only light I've got is the stuff from the back, the window in the background here.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, you see all this equipment. I have my laptop, and what you see behind me. I did an interview for E-Learning Guild. I had to go out the night before and buy these curtains because these are the curtains that.
Oh.
My
eyes.
My eyes are bleeding now.
Oh, God. Oh, so someone threw up on your curtains is what happened, and you just figured, it's too much trouble to wash that.
Yeah.
The red looks better.
Some herbivore decided, yep, that's what we're gonna. Oh man. Well, I guess there are a couple things we could talk about. I know Anthony and I are just now coming down from the high of having participated in an e-learning guild online forum, and man, I should have that at hand, but I don't have the full title of it. Something like, what was it?
XAPI.
It was something involving XAPI, which means, as per usual, I need to drink something, but I don't have anything at hand. But for those of you who weren't here for the pre-on-air stuff, the good stuff, I went straight from my online forum session, which was the closing session, to the Washington City Paper Margarita Wars down at the Navy Yard in D.C., if you guys are familiar with that. And I sampled like 15 different types of margarita because I'm a good citizen.
And that was today?
That was yesterday. No, that wasn't today. If it was today, I'd be probably face down on the keyboard.
Too bad. This hangout would be so interesting if it was.
Yeah, I have to tell you, it would be really interesting. Last night was really interesting, but anyway, I don't know if I'm going to drink today because I drank a lot last night in celebration of having presented. So Anthony, why don't you, so that I'm not talking about my alcoholism, Anthony, why don't you tell everyone about your session on the 20th and what you covered?
You talk about my alcoholism. Okay.
Yes, please.
So first of all, I am not a fan of the margaritas. I drink sake.
Oh, there was a sake margarita, which wasn't my favorite, to be honest. Just because I don't think the two should make. I also like sake, but anyway, please go ahead. Noted.
So the name of the event was Tracking and Managing Learning with LMSs, LRSs, and the XAPI.
Oh, see, that makes a lot of sense. Right.
So I did a session kicking the can, moving from SCORM to XAPI. Worth noting was I got my hand slapped for the title slightly because I made a reference to that other name.
Wait, what other name? What is that? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a typo, I think.
Okay, yeah. I thought it was a nice reference. I mean, even if you never said the term that shall not be spoken, it was referenced, and I thought that was good.
But basically, I spoke on looking at the process by which to take a look at the content that you have, and starting the process to move from a SCORM-centric, LMS-centric environment to XAPI. And not necessarily LRS-centric. I think we left that door open, but moving more towards XAPI. And really, the realization that moving the code is about the easiest thing you're going to do in that process. It's all looking at what data you want to collect, where that data lives, who's going to use it, how to build that reporting, and all that thought that has to go into before you type a single line of code.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I really liked. I did. I couldn't unfortunately stick around for your entire presentation because I was leading me someplace else. But I know that you got up on the high wire at the end of yours, and actually you were engaged in code at the end of the thing. So I was biting my nails, but of course I then had to leave. I heard that there was a stray bracket. Is that what happened? Is that what happened? Like,
What did I do to you? What did I?
I can't wait to watch it. I will fill this cup and then sit back and then watch it.
Well, don't. Yeah, and as you're watching it, face away from the computer because there's a spit take there.
Oh, really?
So I started off the demonstration. I started off by saying there are 3 things you never do live: work with kids, work with pets, and code.
Right.
My daughter and my pet are in the other room, so buckle up. We're gonna code. And I copied everything in, and I looked at the time, and I actually had more time than I thought I did. I screwed up in my head.
Oh.
And what it was is, as you know, XAPI statements have about 50 million Bob Hope brackets in there.
Yeah.
And as I was following the train, I missed one. So the page wouldn't load right, and finally I just said, the hell with this. I cut over to a copy I already had. So immortalized forever is my absolute failure in coding. Thank you for reminding me.
No problem. I'm here to.
Very nice.
I'm here to help.
Greg is rejoicing in that. He wants to be the king of XAPI, so he's happy that you failed.
Wants to be. Wants to be. You're talking about it like it's something I've not achieved. That I'm not. Like I leave the. Wow. I mean, honestly, I leave the crown, off for these recordings. No, I'm actually just the. Anthony put it, the rodeo clown for XAPI, making sure that people are not trampled. But otherwise, I do actually have.
Nice.
Yeah. So, hey, before I talk about my session and more,
did you get into some conclusions on how people are using the data that comes out of this massive amount of statements?
Oh, I'll leave that to.
I mean, so far, the people I've talked to between DevLearn, Learning Solutions, and just various other online forums, the conclusion I'm coming to is either we're just translating SCORM to XAPI, so we're still just collecting completion date, score, that, or you have the people who have firmly placed their head in that news and they are collecting everything they possibly can. And half of it they're not reporting on. A lot of folks I talk to, they've put XAPI statements everywhere. Half of them, I don't want to say don't make sense, but we're using the launched verb way too often.
Yeah.
And then when I ask them, well, what are you reporting on? Well, we're reporting on how long you spent on the page and the SCORM data. Well, then why are you collecting all this other stuff? Well, we may want it later. Well, yeah, but if you're not using the right verb, how are we going to use that? So that's kind of the situation I've been running into for a lot of people.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, we mentioned this in our sessions, I think, yesterday, especially in Megan Torrance and Rob Hook's session, which was really great. There was a lot of talk about basically the lack of data science and, basically facility with the concept of the scientific method in creating learning or training or performance support intervention. And I think at root, that's the problem that we're uncovering with the ability to capture this data. Like the data, the coding and other things, I think, Anthony, you're right. That's actually not the hard part. The hard part is figuring out, okay, even before we have the ability to kind of collect and then create a bunch of analytics, we really, part of the, I don't know, I feel like part of ADDIE is, or should be, basically applying the scientific method to, a situation and kind of framing things properly, and then having something that you're trying to test, and then seeing if you can fix it, or seeing if you can affect positive change. And I think God, just all of a sudden, Professor Elemental shows up on our.
It's a more serious take on things now.
Yes.
I think
it just got real.
uncertainty too, right? Now you get to have all this data. You can track pretty much anything, but what do you do with it? So people aren't certain of what they actually should do with the data because it's unprecedented amounts of data. And so a lot of people are insecure and just gathering everything just in case, and then later they come up with a strategy. So, I mean, would you say it's more important to have a strategy on what data you are going to use before you start collecting everything possible?
Yeah, I'd say it's important. I'd say I almost want to say that you should forget. The best thing about XAPI is it's like, hey, you can get a bunch of data. Now forget that there's a way to do all that. Just know that you can get information when you need it. Just put that out of your mind. The important part is you're kind of intimating, and so is that you think about, okay, what are you trying to find out? And what are you trying to fix? What's the problem? Which should be what we're thinking about anyway. It's just now we have. I think we've been conditioned by the way that we interact with learning management systems and the reporting aspect of LMSs or enterprise systems and how we have been using them or how we've been expected to use them. I was going to say I'd like to hear from the pirate, but she took off her eye patch. So, hey, Melissa, how are you doing?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome.
Nope.
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm not gonna interrupt you guys too much because I am by no means even a novice in XAPI, and I need to get into it.
Well, you know, there is a curator is putting on they're currently in the second week, I think, of their XAPI MOOC, which is going really well, and it's free. So
I saw, but isn't it synchronous, and that's an issue?
Yeah, it's a little.
Yeah,
It
that's
is
a
somewhat.
huge issue.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm.
Not really synchronous.
Yeah, I mean, you can. You know what it is? It's like the parts where you're doing like the peripheral parts, like the XAPI Twitter chat,
Right.
and other things. Those are. But you can start now or
Okay.
next week or whatever. A lot of
Yeah,
that's there.
Yeah, I just can't do anything that's live unless it's after like 6 o'clock at night. So.
Yeah. That's when everything good happens anyway.
Yeah.
As evidenced by the Margarita Wars last night. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
So,
What
what are some examples of planning that you guys have seen for data collection coming from XAPI? What are people typically collecting, and how?
One thing I want to point out, kind of an answer to some of the points Craig made. I was thinking about this after the session last night, especially after yours and Megan's. If I look at e-learning, the e-learning industry, I think that we can very easily draw an analog to think about the TV industry, especially back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, into the 60s. A lot of people, they did TV programs, well, because that was what you did. You moved from radio to TV. That's what you did. That was the expectation. And I think in a lot of cases we have e-learning products because that's what you do. That's expected. And now we're getting to where TV was really probably, I would say, in the 1960s, where you started looking at focus groups and you started looking at really doing genre, I don't want to say genre TV, but you started creating TV programs for targeted audiences. Figure back in the 40s and 50s, you had your soap operas for whoever was watching TV during the day. You had your Western, sci-fi, whatever was all jumbled together in the evening for whoever was watching then. We didn't really target the audience at all. It was just, hey, this is new, and we know you're watching because it's new. I think in the 60s is when you really started to see TV programs, and movies were before that, but TV especially, where you're targeting to a certain audience where, okay, I want this kind of an audience, so this show has to be on, it'll play on ABC, it won't play on Dumont. There's nothing played on Dumont. But, it'll play on this station, but not this station, and it has to play at this time, not that time.
Mm-hmm.
I think the e-learning industry is really just getting to that point where we're starting to realize, not all of our content is for everyone, and we're starting to get an interest in that data analytics that, hey, that will help us tailor the courses to the exact audience we need them to. So to that point that was raised by Megan and in the conversation, and I think accurately so, where does the onus lie on that reporting and on that data science? Because it hasn't been an issue before, so the L&D people have kind of accepted that now because we've realized before everyone else this is important. And so since we were the first ones at the table, we're the only ones having the conversation. So I think that's how that has evolved. And I think it's probably going to be that way for a little while longer until we can really get the business people and the product people to realize you can't just throw this stuff out on the web and hope it works.
Right.
You have to tailor it.
Yeah.
So I think...
But how is it? So you're saying that XAPI data is being used to tailor learning experiences? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's not yet. I think it can be. It doesn't have to be XAPI. I mean, you could be getting those analytics from Google Analytics just as easy.
Yeah, actually, you have a presentation on SlideShare, Anthony, which sort of details that. But I think you'll be presenting that later this year, I think. So I don't want to steal your thunder.
Well, that was a presentation from Learning Solutions. I'm doing another presentation focusing more on XAPI than Google Analytics at DevLearn. I'm sorry, at eLearning Dev Camp in Salt Lake City.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. Right, you were saying. So we discussed yesterday, Enzo, the concept of using a learner profile and how the learner profile has progressed over the years. And, there's a real possibility of having a learner profile which is informed by past experiences which have been captured by XAPI, learning experiences, preferences such as language. So if you have content that can be expressed in a different language, or a language other than the language that was used to originally to create the content, that learner may be served that content with that. It would track things like achievements, things within a competency framework. So if you have someone trying to become a doctor or a medical technician or an EMT, things that they've done, such as reading certain things or participating in workshops or attending events, those things can be, whether they did them, in whatever situation they did them, you could have the learner profile basically have information about what they did, and then you can interface that with the actual framework that that is required to become an EMT, and then say, okay, well, given their past activities, they fulfilled this, and that, plus they have these abilities. Plus, they've done, they've met this requirement for whatever. Therefore, they need to be served this content because that's what's lacking, and it meshes properly with what their past experiences and their preferences. So that's just one way that you can use that XAPI can be involved in tailoring learning experiences. I kind of want to shift though, because Enzo, you brought up, I guess before we got on, the idea of preparing learners, to learn best or to perform properly. I'm going to share in the chat window a link to an article that Enzo wrote called "In Pursuit of Lifelong Learning." Yeah. So kind of just because we were talking about XAPI and kind of tailoring content or tailoring the context of content. I don't know if anyone else has had a chance to read this article. I did because Enzo put it out, but I'm going to outline a couple things so that we can talk about them. Enzo settled on 5 sets of skills that learners need to succeed in the classroom. One being proper time management. Another being authenticity. Basically. Actually, I'll have you expound on that in a moment. The third is a can-do attitude, which may or may not be easy to generate. The fourth is a shared mindset and accountability through partners. So I would imagine a communal situation where you have people depending on each other. And then the fifth is honest feedback. So what do you guys think about? Does that sound accurate? I'm asking you to critique Enzo's work.
And on the authenticity thing, I mean like applying what you're learning in an authentic way. So as soon as you learn it, let's go ahead and, so we're talking about XAPI, so if we're consider that a learning experience, let's go ahead and try to apply it to our work or what we're doing right away. Not come up with fake situations, but try to apply it to work. That's kind of the mindset I try to adopt when I'm working. I make every work, I try to make every project a learning experience and try to apply something new into it.
How do you,
for myself.
How do you, Anthony and Melissa, how do you guys get to, because I know, Anthony, you work for the Red Cross, so we've had some discussions about EMTs and medical situations involving XAPI and the Internet of Things, but Anthony and Melissa, I want to know how you guys get to authenticity through e-learning, because that's oftentimes there's a bit of a bridge there, because we're sort of abstracting in the first place from real life. How do you get to authentic practice after that?
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I remember having this conversation with you a few Hangouts ago. Remember when I was saying, oh, you should take a course on lynda.com?
Oh, right, yeah.
I commented on your website.
Yeah.
So I actually did that, and I didn't have to make anything from it, but I did, and then I shared it with everyone. And I think that's a good example of, not just taking a course, but taking a course and doing something with it. So that's something that I really would like to strive for more at work with our learners, because it's not something, I work remotely, it's not something that I get to go and see, are they applying it right away, what they're learning, are they doing it? So that's definitely something I have to work on. I can do it personally myself, but I wish people were doing what I was doing in that fashion.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we go into a workshop or a course just to check off something. I have completed this workshop on X, Y, and Z. Go into the workshop with that authentic problem already. So you're already, in your mind as you're going through the workshop, you're already applying in a way, or trying to find ways to apply what you are listening immediately, what you're doing, what you're discussing immediately to it. Instead of waiting, go through the course and then later apply it. Maybe go into it with an application in mind as often as you can.
Yeah, and you can discuss other ways that you can apply it too, because the course that I took was on cinemagraphs, and so I made one for one of my e-learning heroes challenges, but then I was like, wait, I can use this in so many different ways. So my HR quarterly is next week, or not next week, the week after, so I'm going to go and actually make cinemagraphs there of everyone at the HR quarterly that we can share with our company, and then I'm going to use it for I hope for the Articulate Guru challenge. So you can even get people thinking about ways, how are you going to apply this that we're telling you, but how else can you apply it other than how we're telling you? So get people thinking about that.
It's an investment that they're making into the course. It's not just checking off a list. They have a goal.
Yeah, Anthony?
So I don't know how to answer the question, because the reality is, the majority of our training, we don't want you to ever have to use.
Here's this emergency disaster training now. Please go to Nepal.
Yeah, I mean, if you put it at its basest level, I'm teaching you to put your hands on a dead guy and punch him back to life.
Oh, well, who hasn't done that though?
Yeah,
I mean.
Yeah.
Last night, actually, to be honest.
I mean, I should say it more professionally, but when you really get down to it, that is what we're doing.
Punching a dead guy back to life.
Yeah, and it's something we hope you don't ever have to use. It's like insurance. We're selling you something and you say, for God's sakes, please don't ever have to use this.
Right.
So, as far as authenticity for us, the scenarios are, for lack of a better term, dead simple. They're very straightforward for the vast majority of the time. When you get into things, like lifeguarding or first aid for coaches, things like that, I think that you get into a little more open of, we're going to give you some scenarios, but you need to apply these scenarios to anything that could happen at a pool, at an ocean park, beachfront, whatever.
Right.
That's a little more difficult, but the majority of our classes, somebody stops breathing, they're choking on something, they don't have a pulse, they've got a cut in the arm, whatever. I guess in one sense we're very authentic in that we are giving you the very hard scenarios that are very directly applicable, but at the same time, like you said, but we hope you never have to use it.
Right.
I'm glad I already had lunch.
Whatever.
Yeah, I see, but even that practice can be made more uh, uh, at the verge of being authentic, at least, right? Instead of just listening in a classroom or watching somebody do it. Even that, I don't know, it
Oh, I
can
mean,
be made more.
Depending on, like for us, you've got when you go to the course, you've got the mannequin, so you actually are practicing the skills. We have a new version of the blended learning course, simulation learning, where you practice some of the skills virtually on the keyboard. So instead of compressing the chest, you're clicking a mouse button 30 times. And the idea there isn't, obviously you're not compressing the chest with a finger, you're going to need your whole body to do that, but you're starting to get the rhythm down. You are actually practicing physical skills at that point. It may not seem like it, but you are, because again, you're doing the rhythm. So, there's a lot of steps to that process, at least for the online product. For the classroom product, it's basically listen to people like myself speak, and then you get up and you beat up a giant Ken doll.
right. Again, like,
Most fun you can have with a giant Ken doll. Come on.
yeah, I was about to say that's the weird part, actually.
It is.
Like, you can bring your own. It's like, all right, good. Invested. I kind of want to. Oh wow, there's a.
So, wow, there is a little echo there.
All right, I'm gonna stop.
So we were talking about making the learner, getting the learner ready, setting the mindset, helping them understand or know that they have that a lot of or most of learning is on their hands. It's not us. It's not the designers. It's on them to learn and to practice and to find real ways to practice what they're learning, or the best way to practice what they are learning. Otherwise, they might not actually be learning at all, right?
Yeah.
So, and then, how can we better prepare our learners to be learning ready? And maybe later we can tie it back into the discussion of all the data that we're getting, all that big data we're getting on learning. How do we use that to acknowledge that the learners are going out of their way to learn what they should be doing?
So one of the best examples that I can think of, or simple examples I can think of, is increasing use of video in training. Whether it be for that. Oh, yeah,
There's a really bad echo.
Yeah.
Does someone not have their earplugs in?
No, I'm not earplugged. Oh, there we go. All right. So
it's Enzo.
I think all right. Well, I'll finish quickly and then I'll shut up. So video is being used a lot to, in all sorts of training and in performance support and just-in-time training, etc. One of the mysteries, I think, is, we know that a video is not supposed to run longer than 6 minutes, or you start to lose people if you're doing instruction, and that's more or less true. But in the world of MOOCs, people start to overdo it. There is an open question often of like, how effective is this, piece of video? How, what parts are really interesting? And for a while, like, it was really hard to figure that out. There are now you can use XAPI and you can use a couple different things, a couple different wrappers provided by both ADL and some other organizations to track events associated with watching video. So even simple stuff like, starting here, paused here, scrobbled, I think that's the verb I use, whether you kind of shuffle, through a video to go forward, to go back. How often did people watch the same stretch of video? Did they watch the entire thing? So, and this is where you kind of go to improving an educational resource. So you have like a 6-minute video, and it talks about herpetology, or something. People are only watching the first minute, and then they're skipping ahead to like like the last 30 seconds. So, what does that tell you? It tells you that maybe your video is terrible, and they're just skipping ahead to see if they missed anything. Maybe the people are watching the first minute over and over again because there's something in there that's really useful. Maybe someone has linked your video in a blog or whatever and has only done, from, or whatever. Like they say, oh, in the first minute, blah 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 blah. You start getting an indication of what your learners are doing, and then you start to you may have to form a hypothesis and then test that, and stuff that's actually really common in the web design world. All this stuff, A/B testing and stuff like that. We can do that too. Oh, Anthony has added in the chat window. I'm sure you guys saw it. A link to the video community, XAPI community of practice. So thank you, Anthony. Actually, I should also mention, Anthony is one of the, what would we call you, Anthony? Co-founders? Honchos?
Honcho.
Okay, he is one of the honchos of the simulation XAPI community of practice. So basically working on, or exploring how best to use the Experience API when working with simulation, which tracks well with his position. I think we're also thinking about talking about how video games and XAPI.
Yeah, and I know that was one of the things I have to. I want to say it was cohort team 8 that did the Unity engine.
I think so, yeah.
To reach out to them, and also the augmented reality. Reach out to that community of practice. Email on them quite a bit. But the other reason I wanted to bring the video community practice was the video heat map was something we spent a fair bit of time talking about on the last COP meeting. And really just for all of those reasons, and one of the reasons I brought up in my presentation was if you have somebody who's watching a video over and over again, well, they may be watching that because the video is really good, or because it's really bad and they have to watch it to consume whatever information is there to be had.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like with any scientific endeavor, you're given a certain amount of data, and you have to draw conclusions based on that data. Hopefully, you are getting to the root cause, but you've heard correlation does not equal causation, etc. So I think we're all familiar with that.
Causes violent crime.
Right. So I think we absolutely have to, as professionals, we have to think like that. Kind of in reference to Enzo's article, I think we using something like XAPI or employing data science, employing the scientific method means that we are the 400-pound Samoa, who is that's our job. We're supposed to flatten barriers to learning. And then, as Enzo said, let the learners do what they're supposed to. Let them become excited about what they're trying to learn and trying to do. But our job is to, kind of get stuff out of their way.
So, for that's true. For our many times it doesn't even involve creating new content. It's just curating the right content for them to get the basis, and then of what we intend for them, what it matters to the company, for example, or the organization. Give them the basis, and then let them fly. And now that with all that data that we're getting, possibly getting with things like XAPI, we would start having a bigger picture of what else are they getting, what are we not providing that they're getting on their own, how are they getting when they're getting it, why they're getting that information, why are they, for example, going to supplement what we're teaching them with a lynda.com course. Maybe we should offer something like that, or a link to that course, or whatever it is as part of our curriculum, and we can better support them in that way if we know how they are finding their information.
Right. I mean, the other thing that it does is also allows you to, if you have some other materials that are out there that are not on your servers, that are not, that you don't have, that are not on the, are not reporting directly to the LMS, you can still get, information about how your learners are interacting with that media, with that resource, and then funnel that to some place where you can get reporting. That would be the LRS. So, all right, I'm going to stop.
And, we could also bring it back into a recognition for what they're doing outside of the LMS, right? Recognizing them for what they're doing on their own, that contributes to that skill set that you're looking for.
Right, which allows you within an organization to maybe build, kind of what I was saying, frameworks around like, okay, what does it take to be considered a knowledge center, or an expert about some aspect of what the company does, and someone that people should go and talk to. What is it? So you can define that within your organization. You can also track, basically how people ping someone who is considered already an expert. You can pattern, people's learning after what this person or these group of people did to become what they are now. So, I mean, there are all sorts of really cool opportunities for us as L&D professionals to, get more involved in the performance aspect of our organizations. But I think it all. I'm really happy that you're that you shared this article.
Cool.
It really kind of tied stuff back to me. Actually, I want to shut up because I see that we should probably be talking about the big event that happened down in Orlando.
I just wanted to say that I did that little article because I think so many times we're just focusing, and when we publish things, when we share, is on what we do all the time, but we forget that learning is up to the learner. We're just supporting them in a way, and we need to look more into how we can support them in that, besides just formal learning and all that we're talking about constantly. With that, let's say Melissa was there. I wasn't at ATD ICE 2015. So share with us some of the main points that you saw across the conference.
Sure, and I volunteered there, so I didn't get to really pick the sessions that I was in because I was a room monitor, so I had to stay in the same room the whole time. But it actually kind of ties in with your article, Enzo. One of the keynotes, the best keynote of the whole conference, was at the end of the conference. It was Eric Wall. Do you guys know Eric Wall? Do you guys know who he is?
I do not. Nope.
Okay. All right. Well,
I have heard of him.
Well, anyhow, I didn't know who he was until this. But so he's actually, I guess, a famous painter, and he wrote a book called Unthink. And so he's all about creativity and innovation and oh, someone joined. Creativity and innovation, and just going for something, just practicing. He wants people to just be able to. He wanted to be an artist since he was a child. He basically, everyone told him, no, don't be an artist. You stink at art, and he gave up. And he went and worked a corporate job, and his life was miserable. And one day he got fired, or something happened, and he wasn't there anymore. And he just went for being an artist. He never picked up a paintbrush or anything, and this was when he was like 35 years old, or he was like in his 30s. And he basically the whole time he got up and painted in front of us, and his whole talk tied into training better than any other keynote I've seen. And he said basically, you're going to fear something, and you're going to fail at it, but you just have to keep going. And it ties in with what your article's about, Enzo. Practicing and having just going for it, regardless of your fears.
That's awesome.
Actually, I wonder how do we? I mean, maybe this is a lot. Maybe this is too much to kind of ask of us as professionals, but I wonder how we would inspire that in our learners, Melissa. It seemed like this guy went on a kind of a personal journey to arriving at that conclusion. But is there any way for us to even to assist that, to be helpful, to kind of get people to that point?
I think there is, and he mentioned that he didn't just do it on his own. He actually had a mentor that told him, they said, you know what you need to do? You need to just travel the world, and you just need to do this, and you just need to do that. And he was really afraid, and he finally just got fed up, and this mentor was helping him, and he, like, his paintings are amazing. They sell for like hundreds of thousands of dollars, like just crazy amounts, and it just shows, if you follow your passion, even if you're afraid to, it can become something huge.
Well, you mentioned mentoring, and that's something I think many organizations are going for lately too. Is the idea of supporting outside of the classroom the learning, which it's exactly what we're talking about here, right? It's looking at the learner holistically as a human being. They're not interested in, perhaps not even interested in, learning what you have to teach them in a formal course. But we have to encourage that behavior of going for their goals, and bringing and thinking of how their goals can fit into the company's goals, for example. And encouraging them to go on their own and learn and go for their passions and bring their passions into work, instead of checking them out as they virtually or physically check into an office. And providing a mentor or coach or a program like that, for example, that besides the classroom event, having constant support and people helping them reflect on what their skills are, what their mindset is, what their goals are, how the company can support them in that, finding them volunteer opportunities that tie in with their goals, for example. I think that is very powerful right there. We need to think beyond the classroom, beyond the virtual classroom, beyond the e-learning, whatever it is. Think of the learner as a whole human being that has goals outside of just working the 9 to 5.
Yeah, it's very true, and that speaks a lot to what he was saying.
Well, how else did you find the event, Melissa? Like, I mean, again, every year it seems like they kind of turn it up.
So my favorite presenters would be Dan Steer, and I've already written about it, but I'll just say it again. Dan Steer was awesome, and then Craig Weiss was really, yeah. And so I was talking to people, and I was like, Craig W., and they thought I was talking about you.
Right, yeah, I know.
It got a little confusing.
No, he's the, he's definitely the, I will say this, he's definitely the more valuable one, Craig W. He doesn't like LRSs, though, you guys. He doesn't. He's
but very against LRS.
It's funny, he doesn't like LRSs, but that's his thing, right? Like, I remember when...
He rocked it. He was amazing.
Yeah, he knows his stuff when it comes to LRSs. He is someone who spends his time, actually working with stuff. When a vendor comes to an event and they don't have demos ready, like, he talks about it. And, like, he doesn't pull punches. He's definitely like, yeah, this sucked. Like, don't buy it. Or
yeah, he said that a lot.
Yeah, and that's and I have to say, like, there are a lot of resources about how to choose an LMS. Actually, ADL has one. How to choose an LMS, written by my colleague Peter Birking, and all of them help. But I mean, as we know, LMSs have core functions, and then they have like everything else that they can do, and it's really hard to compare them. And that's been a source of anxiety for a lot of organizations. I mean, there are a lot of really good LMSs out there, but it's hard to know which ones are good and which ones just have a good marketing department. And Craig is kind of a nasty troll of goodness, so I appreciate it.
I like people's honesty. I appreciate the honesty in the community.
Yeah.
People can be honest, and give constructive criticism. So.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
All right.
I think we're 5 minutes to be over here.
Oh yeah, I actually probably have to. I have to be out. Any parting words from our from everybody else? Actually, from Anthony, our guest.
Happy birthday to Pac-Man.
To who?
Pac-Man? Did you say Pac-Man?
Yeah, 35 years.
That link didn't work. The link didn't work when you sent it, Anthony.
Oh, no. All right.
Yeah, I figured it out. I mean, I figured it out, kind of, I think Google told me or something. But
Pac-Man is turning 35 today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me, I'm older than Pac-Man.
Oh, my.
But are we older than Ms. Pac-Man? Because I feel like that was a later... She came along a little bit later, so.
Well, Pac-Man was 1980. Ms. Pac-Man, I believe, was 1982.
Yeah.
Late 81 or early 82.
Yeah.
And then Pac-Man Jr. just kind of splatted onto the scene somewhere around 83.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I'm still younger than Mr. Pac-Man.
Yeah, they don't call him Myth. Well, I guess he's Pac-Man.
I've got his hairdo, so then.
Oh, yes. Fits right in.
Yeah, just
Got
like
the goatee.
stand to the side. Yeah. Well, I don't have anything left to say except looking to see people in the XAPI MOOC, and I'll be trying to catch up this weekend. And everyone have a good Memorial Day holiday. Those of you.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. It's a holiday. Yay. My
Thank you for coming.
In the States, you work for a government agency or whatever, don't go into work on Monday.
There you go.
I feel bad.
You guys have a good weekend.
Oh.
How about you, Melissa? Anything to say?
No, I just feel bad that I couldn't contribute to the XAPI stuff. I need to hop on that. Like, I don't need to be an expert. I just need to, you know, at least get the lowdown. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna look at the MOOC.
Do the
Yeah.
MOOC.
Yeah, the MOOC is good. There's a course that Andrew Downs does for the e-learning guild, which is it's good. I've taken it, and it's a good course. It's a 4-week thing. You know, the one problem, and this isn't really a problem. It's just that you have to pay money for it, like you do with anything associated with it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a good. I would say it's a good investment, but kind of to your point, Melissa, earlier. You know, it's not just money; it's also the time. You know, invested.
Yeah, because that's my issue. You can't be an expert in everything, and I try to focus in a specific area. So, I mean, just to at least get a good overview. I mean, I have an understanding, but not an understanding, a working understanding. So, I need at least a little bit of a working understanding.
Well, we'll get you there. Anthony will come back and enlighten us. So.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming out, and everyone have a good time, including you, Mixed Race. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate it.
Mixed. We got a lot of mixed race in here.
Yeah, actually.
The other day, my daughter forgot her sunglasses to in the car going to school. My wife was taking her. And she's 6, and my wife says, go, just use your brother's, his 2, use his sunglasses, and she's like, no, I'm gonna look a lot like Daddy, and people at school say my daddy's the new Michael Jackson, and by that
Oh my gosh.
they mean Bruno Mars, and
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
she's kind of proud but shy at the same time.
That's so funny.
With the hat. Never mind. All right.
Yeah, the hat makes it worse, doesn't it?
Right. All right. On that note, I'm getting out of here.
All right, bye.
Goodbye to everyone, including Bruno Mars. Have a good weekend.
You guys.
Bye.
Bye.